And we are live. How's it going, everyone? As always, we have a very exciting guest on today. It's going to be Justin from Wonderland, or from Dappio, apologies. And for those who don't know Dappio, there's a lot going on here. And I think it's really exciting because the world of DeFi and NFTs can be really confusing. There's a lot of different things going on. But what Dappio aims to do via their Wonderland is aggregate yields across DeFi and NFTs. So this is something that's currently building. There's so much coming out, but if you are really a part of Dappio, you know that some of these features are already available to users and holders. So with that being said, let's really dive into what Dappio is and what they're building. Justin, how's it going, man?
Good. Thanks for having me coming here. Looking forward to sharing more info and alphas to the audience. And
Definitely, definitely. Super exciting. It seems like Dappio has been very active in the ecosystem. Even just seeing things recently with you guys jumping on and looking to do AMAs with Katana, and then even moving forward, really just getting involved in the ecosystem. I think Dappio is in a very unique situation where they are able to leverage everything that is building in the space. And I think that's just super exciting. So for people who maybe don't quite know, it would be great to just talk about what is Dappio and really the goal behind it.
yeah, for sure. So initially, I have been the early DeFi users for Solana. In fact, I actually attended the first global hackathons back in 2020. So throughout the years and months, I realized there has been so many bottlenecks for users to fully leverage entire Solana ecosystems. Hence the reason why about 6 months ago I had this ideas where I want to build a Solana Wonderland. What does it mean by Solana Wonderland? Where we want to aggregate all these quality projects into one spot where users can fully leverage their APYs, also functionalities, instead of searching around, asking for people whether these protocols are reliable or not. So this is something that I've been saying to a lot of people from the early days, where I want to build a Booking.com for a Solana ecosystem where you come to Dappio Wonderland and you can execute all these protocols in one click. So, by doing that, we initially I want to build a DeFi aggregators, a DeFi Yo aggregators, but I then realized that Solana is a lot bigger than just DeFi's. I can certainly tell you right now that I think in the coming weeks and months, I think NFT finance is also going to be another trend for Solana ecosystems, and I think it makes sense. Right now, Dappio, we have aggregated 9 protocols already. I think by far no one has ever done this many integrations for the Solana ecosystem.
That's
Why?
amazing.
Yeah, because Solana projects are hard to integrate. Let's be honest. A lot of protocols we integrate with are closed source, so it took us a lot of times to really putting into communications, and also reading their code, digest it into our code base. But I think the hardest part we have overcame already. So right now it's all about executions. We are actually on a path to 10th integrations. I don't really want to disclose the name right now, but it's also another big protocols on Solana. So I think gradually people get to understand why aggregators are is important. And then in addition to that, Dappio is a product yield aggregators. What does it mean by product yield aggregators? I actually haven't talked about this with a lot of community members. So basically, we will incentivize people with our native tokens. With our native tokens, people will have higher APYs. Then a lot of audience might wonder. So does that mean is it a pump and dump tokens where you farm and dump right away? My answer is no. We are going to have a vesting schedule. lock tokenomics. It's actually the first time I'm going to say this. So we are creating a new transaction mining mechanisms for the entire Solana ecosystems. Basically, you get our tokens in the futures, you lock it, and then you will get the transaction fee that's being earned by the Dappio as a platforms. So basically, the more you lock, the more passive income you get from the platforms. And then I think it makes sense because all these protocols we integrate with on Solana, people have been using on a daily basis. So why not coming to Dappio and get more APY, get more EL out of it by participating and then using more of these products on top of Dappios.
Yeah, that's great. I think there's a lot to unpack here. Just starting at the transaction mining, I think that's very interesting that you are really looking for intuitive ways to incentivize yield, right? This past 6 to 12 months, there has been this issue of mercenary liquidity or mercenary users, sort of what you were hinting at with the pump and dump there. Obviously, people coming into the ecosystem and just chasing the next highest yields. It seems like thinking about ways to have users lock up and earn rewards from the protocol is super interesting. It's this whole idea of finding ways to better align incentives of, yes, giving users an early part of the ecosystem and rewarding them, but also making sure that those users are beneficial to the platform. I think something that's really notable, and there's a couple questions I have here, but something that's just very notable is the fact that, yes, you guys don't have too many users yet, but this is on purpose, the sense that you guys are in private beta, but more than close to half, just a little bit under half of your users look like they're showing up to your protocol every day. So I think that's incredibly notable that you guys are actually building services that are really sticky. You mentioned 9 protocol integrations. I'd imagine between all of these, users will easily be able to lend and borrow, swap tokens, and then also earn yield. It'd be great to just highlight who some of the integrations are, why do you have these integrations, and the benefits for the users.
Yeah, for sure. So right now, the 9 integrations are Radiance, Solent, Lyrics, Katana, what else? Jupiter's, and there's also Francium, Tulips, Port, all these protocols. So there are 9 protocols right now are integrated by DAPPOs. And we, like I said, we actually actually on a path to 10 protocols in the coming weeks. So why integrated these protocols? Obviously, we have done our due diligence where we realized that all these protocols they have a significance of on-chain users, proven by the on-chain data. And then, like I said, I think Solana is a completely different chain versus Ethereum, where we're going to see more action savvy people happening on Solana as a platform, as a chain users. So imagine we integrate 9 protocols on top of Dappios, where you can search highest APY in one platforms. And then more importantly is that we will give out our tokens just to stimulate all these traffics. Imagine this. Solana Wonderland, we don't call our Solana Wonderland for no reasons. I think in the coming weeks and months, we will be the go-to search engines for Solana space, where I'm not supposed to say this, but I mean, I'm just going to say a little bit. Our tokenomics are very similar to curve models, where a community decides which pools, which protocols are going to be stimulated by our native tokens. I think it's going to be interesting, where our token is not only going to be having buyers from retails, a lot of institutions or protocols that want to integrate with Dappios, or protocols that want to have stimulate their traffics. They will buy our token and vote for us. So Dappio's native token has a multi-dimensional audience, whereas um, all these audience will compete and obviously for their desires. But I think it's gonna look good, the futures.
Yeah, that's super interesting there, especially the idea of incentivizing the platforms people are using via the native token. it really just makes sure that what users are utilizing is getting the yield. I'm curious just to maybe poke a little bit more on the idea of trying to make it sustainable. What are your thoughts on how you do avoid this pump and dump where people are just looking for yield farming incentives but not actually holding the platform token? What are some of the further thoughts there? Because in general, I think it's safe to assume that most tokens are are feeling this downside pressure at some way or another. So just curious of what the thoughts have been behind that. This is obviously a very hard subject in the sense that designing
Yeah,
tokenomics is difficult. We can't even figure
yeah,
out our economics in the real world. So love having these ongoing discussions of what people learn as the ecosystem moves forward.
yeah, for sure. Throughout my experience, I've been in the space ever since 2014. So I've seen tokens that are being up and down and up for the numerous times. One thing I noticed is that a good tokenomics design should consider from the community perspective, right? What can you provide for the community members? What can you provide for the token holders? This is critical. If I were just creating a token that has a few utilities, expecting people to buy out of it, it doesn't make sense, honestly. And then for our tokenomics, we obviously have learned from the best business model from Curve or all these Luxwares, all these successful business models, where I realized that it's all about giving back, right? Where you see Curve, they give back 30% of their share revenues to the token holders. Looks Rares, they also giving back as much as they can. The same thing goes to Dappios. When you get our token, obviously there will be vesting periods. I think it's fair. In order for your token to be successful, you need adequate vesting periods. I'm not gonna release on the vesting how long the vesting period will be, but we will have vesting schedules, also lockup schedules. So the longer you lock, the higher yield you get. The higher yield you get from our native tokens, the more transaction fee you earn from the other platforms. So I think by these models, a lot of people, I mean, we are actually not competing with projects. Think about this. We're actually promoting projects and giving back like all these transaction fee that are supposed to give it back to community members that they will earn from Dappio as a platforms. This is fascinating, right? You see all these protocols, they're making millions and millions of dollars from transaction fees or from revenues, but community doesn't actually get anything out of it. So I think Dappio becomes a critical infrastructure for entire Solana ecosystem. We're actually going to be the first one to do so. Where if you're doing lending or borrowing on Solana, we're not coming Dappios, right? And then all your transaction fees that you spend on our programs will eventually give it back to you proportionally. So we look forward to this tokenomic designs, and I think a lot of people like this idea.
Definitely. And it sounds like this is something that, or it is something that you guys really just put out the first information on a couple days ago. So I definitely know users can expect as the IDO date gets closer, the launch date gets closer for this token, there will be more information out in that regard. So I do think that is exciting. And just pivoting back to the idea, I think you made a really good point that I was trying to hint at early on is how uniquely positioned Dappio is in the sense of aggregating all of the different protocols. Dappio is looking for Solana and the ecosystem to continue getting user adoption and continue building innovative products and services because in the sense that Dappio wins when everyone is winning, which I think is really unique in the sense that you guys aren't looking to compete. You're really just trying to make the user experience of Solana better all in one place while also trying to bring more users into the ecosystem as a whole. So I think that's really exciting to hear. What I would want to take a step back for maybe listeners who aren't too familiar with Dappio, I think it's always important to fill in these gaps. Are people able to use the Wonderland platform right now with all of these aggregated products? What does it look like if you wanted to use it?
So yeah, we in fact we actually have done gone through our private beta 2. So about 4 months ago, we start our private beta 1 as a start, and then right now we are on a stage where private beta 2 is being given out to the NFT holders, where the community members that have been actively very active in our discords. So in fact, I also want to pull up this private beta on data out there. So there are over 7,000 people joining our private beta too. We at the highest we have 2,000 people daily active users. For the daily active users, we have transact over $20 million for the past month. So I think even till today, I'm checking this mornings where today we have over 400 people that have gone on to Dappio to leverage our servers. So it actually shows you that people actually need this type of platforms. And then on top of that, well, I think what's more important is that we haven't even given our native token. People have been using as a daily product already. So if you guys want to get into our private betas, please, obviously you can acquire our NFT. It grants you instant access to our private betas, or stay active in our Discord. For those people who have been staying active in our Discord, have been giving them permissions for our private betas. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting and just want to dig a little bit deeper. I think a big thing that we're seeing a lot of people do is have an NFT collection and then also looking to launch a token as well. I'm curious, does looking to, in a sense, have more tokens, more things that users can look at and potentially purchase in the ecosystem, does that worry you in any sense of moving around capital or gating off certain things? I'm curious, how do you have an NFT collection, keep utility towards that, but then also have token utility? How do you balance these two things? I think we went a lot over what the token will be used for. I'm curious, does that mean that
Mhm.
the Dappy Gang NFTs will lose out on some use cases, or what is the incentives for holders there?
Yeah, there are quite a few incentives. There's holding Dappy gain as an NFT. First, there will be token airdrops. I won't disclose what types of tokens that we will drop into our NFT holders besides NFT EU. And then there will also be a reward multiplier. I think this is going to be big. Imagine you get extra percentage of our native token. Also means that you get more transaction fee that's being earned as a Dappio platforms. And then also we have a transaction fee deductions where you pay less transaction fee. And then I think we are still discovering more utilities for our community members. And then, like I said, I think a lot of you also noticed that Dappy Game is actually one of the few projects that are being for launch for the Solana ecosystems. We team ourselves. We don't hold any Dappy Game. Unfortunately, we still have to acquire Dappy Game from the Magic Eden with like our community members. So I think it's extremely important. We definitely don't want to overlap NFT and our native tokens, but we also want to have our NFT holders as a unique digital identity to Solana Wonderland, where the future developing utilities, we will make sure that these NFT holders will have first access to it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And just to get this all up to speed here, I think we've covered a lot of interesting things, but it all starts to circle back in the sense that users that do want to really get involved in this ecosystem early on, there's really this entry point of the Dappy Gang NFT where users can actually try the private beta, get involved, and this will also start leading into the token that you guys are going to offer NFTU. And then also the sense of this token is really looking to incentivize the core users of the platform. And I think there's just something notable, really tying back to my point that I mentioned earlier, the fact that so many of your guys' users come back and use the platform daily without really having any of these core incentives within the token and having transaction fee staking as well. So those are two things that I think are really exciting for people in the ecosystem, let alone the fact that you guys are continuing to look for integrations, not only in DeFi, but in NFTs as well. I'm curious, maybe it's probably best for you to take us from here, but what can people expect coming up in Dappio? Obviously, the token, we touched on that, but it sounds like a public beta is coming out. What is that going to look like? And then as a little two-part question, we'll stick to the public beta one first, but once you get through that, be interesting to hear what you guys are looking to do on the NFT aggregation side.
Yeah, for sure. Right now, we're still on our private beta roadmaps. I think in less than a month or so, we are planning to update the entire ecosystem where we have brand new dashboards, brand new interface, and more features that enable users with ease of access to the entire ecosystems. So, definitely we want to open up public beta sometimes around April or May. And for the IDOs, we haven't finalized the date, but it's something that I've been noticed. Like we want to just do the IDO just for the sake of raising money. We want to do IDO just for the sake of making sure that everyone knows the potential of Dappio as a platforms. So before doing that, we definitely want to grasp it significant amount of market shares before doing that. And more importantly, as a lot of you guys have noticed, our phase two roadmaps where we're going to start integrating with NFT products and projects where this is going to be interesting, where we have a robust DeFi ecosystems integrations. So actually, it makes sense, right? I'll give you guys a couple of scenarios. So you could borrow money, you could deposit and borrow money from the Dappio ecosystems, and then potentially borrow more NFT from the Dappio platforms. I don't want to disclose how we're going to do it, but we are currently undergoing with 3 to 4 NFT projects. They are very excited because to build an NFT project, you need these DeFi protocols, you need these DeFi products, and it actually makes more sense to execute all these services in one place. So we can wait. Honestly, we're very excited to move forward, and we went from 4 people team to over 16 right now. We are a strong developer back team. We're ready to execute all these future roadmaps.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And it's great to hear your input on where the NFT space is, things such as NFT-Fi, especially seeing a lot of collections starting to pick up steam. But then outside of that, what you kind of hinted at, this whole idea of bringing in DeFi mechanics to NFTs, seeing what projects like Bridge Split, Pawn Shop Nomis, and Fract are doing with fractionalization, and then even looking into NFT collateralization, and then even other things like lending where guilds can go out to do this. So I think those are all super exciting things that are brewing up, which potentially could be aggregated within Dappio's Wonderland to really keep moving forward. I think it's a good idea to kind of open this up. I think you have a lot of insight into the ecosystem, Justin. And I'm just curious, how has it been over the past 6 to 8 months with working with projects and building? You mentioned that there have been some difficulties with closed source. How has it been as the ecosystem has started to develop and really move forward with innovation?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think cultural perspective definitely plays a key factor here, where I think Solana projects are not as open source as versus Ethereum projects. It doesn't mean that Solana projects is worse than Ethereum project in this way. It's just that I think a lot of projects in for Solana space, they care about their intellectual property.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you have to be open source to be eligible to create it as a legit project, right? I think most of us can agree upon this notion and ideas. So, but somehow for us as aggregators, it definitely plays a key hurdles where it actually took us months to realize and figure out all these code. Not just reading the code, right? You have to digest these code into your platform with the code base. But we have overcame these hurdles. I'm extremely proud of my tech teams. We have established uh, quite a bit reputations for the space already, where a lot of projects are surprised with um, the speed of integration that we have done to the space. And we actually want to do more. If you guys actually look closely with our roadmap, that there is SDK developments, which we are undergoing our SDK developments. We are almost at V1 versions. What does SDK means? And for Dappio Wonderland,
Yeah.
we name it as Universal Rabbit Hole. It sounds fun, but so Universal Rabbit Hole, we want to do a Universal Rabbit Holes for the future developers to build around Solana ecosystem. Right now, we have all the programs on hands already. So we figure out why not and open up these programs with our guidelines for developers to build around our SDKs. This is actually something I learned from Instant Dap. So Instant Dap, the TVL went from less than 1 billion to almost 15 billions at one point. But if you actually look on their on-chain data from doing analytics, a lot of TVL actually didn't come from a retail deposit, the retail deposits. It actually came from their SDKs, which I think there are currently over 20 plus projects building around their open source documentations. So this is something that I know Dappio, we definitely want to be a revenue driven projects platforms where if there's another stream of revenue that we can get from an entire ecosystem, why not, right? And then we really to give out all these revenue back to the token holders as well. So I mean, we're still hiring more developers. We're not satisfied with my teams right now. Obviously, we also look for talented peoples. And then, in fact, we also host a monthly workshop in our cities. We've been teaching people how to code on Solana. And then, I'm very fortunate. A lot of people have shown interest, and they can't wait to build around our SDK as well coming forwards.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting. We touched on a couple things that go hand in hand there, right? The idea of being able to integrate this whole idea of open source and closed source. And obviously, part of the mantra is Web3 is trying to get as much open source as possible. But as you mentioned, projects want to protect their IP, especially in early stages. They want to make sure that someone can't just come spin up a fork and become competition overnight. So, definitely makes sense why projects are slow to do that. On the other end of that, I think there's a couple things. One, we've seen a bigger push for more open source. Obviously, this doesn't instantly mean that projects are going to be open source, but you're seeing a lot more hackathon participants really getting out there and sharing their code, which I think is exciting on the front for users and innovation. Because while having closed source code can protect IP, it does somewhat stunt innovation. Whereas in this sense, people can look at what's already been built for the ecosystem and really start going on top of infrastructure instead of having to rebuild things from the bottom up. To flip this a little bit towards your SDK, I'm curious what the thought process of this. You outlined one of the massive benefits, right? The fact that opening up the SDK can allow other builders, other developers to attract TVL to your project. What is the main benefit of this? How does the SDK then translate value? Obviously, to the ecosystem providing the tools, but there will be certain things where people who use the SDK are still giving a portion of fees to Dappio stakers. What's the thought behind that? Because it goes back to this open and closed source trade off, right? There's benefits to closed source, but there's also the same for open source.
Yeah, for sure. I think something that we also notice where we have a wave of new developers that are coming from Ethereum's that they've been eagerly wanting to build on top of Solana. But something that they've been telling me, is where they've been having hard time reading all these codes from the GitHub projects provided. So I think creating our own guidelines, which is universal Rapito, where it will be easier for developers to read all these programs and how does it work and how can you interpret it and interact with all these designs. And secondly, let's not forget, Dappio is going to be going through fully audits, right? Audit, right? So all these developers, they don't have to worry about securities when our guidelines are being audited. And I'm not gonna talk about it right now, but we have partnered up with one of the biggest auditor for Solana space. They also have been auditing for Phantom Wallet as well. So you guys can probably guess the name right there. So um, so yeah, like you solve the first, you solve easier for developers to build. Secondly, the security issues were entire guidelines being audited by the auditors. Thirdly, is that by interacting with these programs, we can easily integrate these projects into Dappio ecosystems because pretty much they are building on top of our guidelines. So if there is a huge traffic for Dappio, which I think there will be, it will be a lot easier for these projects and especially for us to integrate with. So because you think about it, at the end of the days, you can build the best project in the world, but if no one else is using it, it sucks, right? So, we are confident in the coming weeks and months we will grasp a significant amount of market shares, and then all these developers will get inspired by our platforms and then start building around our ecosystems. Because to build a long-term projects, you have to get smarter people to work with you to build around you. So I'm a firm believer on this. We just look forward to the days we open our SDK for developers to use.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think you touched on two exciting things here. One thing that I was going to address is just the fact that you guys are integrating in so many protocols, and most of these are fairly large, significant teams behind them, but it still begs the question of smart contract risk, especially because when you have 9 protocol integrations, you also have the Dappio smart contracts. So there's a lot of smart contract risk involved in these equations. But hearing that you guys are going out looking for top auditing firms, and also from that list of protocols you named, these are some of the highest regarded in the space. I think it is nice for users to see what you guys are trying to do in that sense and have security. But I do think that this is something that, as ecosystems get more and more composable, it's important for users to understand the risk that's stacked on as you start to add more smart contracts into the mix. Really jumping off that, because I think you addressed it very well, Justin, is more so on this idea of the talent coming into the space. You mentioned Ethereum developers coming in, and then in general, just developers. I've been jumping around to some of these hacker houses. I was at Mountain DAO in Utah for a month, jumped over to New York, and I can definitely echo in the sense of the talent that's coming into the space. Seeing people building for this latest Riptide hackathon, it's super exciting knowing that the same innovation that we were seeing in 2020 in hackathons has continued on, and arguably almost at more momentum, just in the sense that there is so much more infrastructure and tooling and a built ecosystem. So seeing all of this continue to develop is really exciting. And looping back in Dappio here, it's just this idea that you guys are looking to increase the user experience and really bring together all these apps into the Wonderland when they make sense and make it easier for the users. So I think those were just two really exciting points I picked out of there. And in general, I'm starting to wind down to the end of my questions. I think we covered a lot of really good things in the regards of what's coming up for Dappio, even painted a little bit of a bigger picture of why the services Dappio offers are important. I'm curious now to really leave it off on something a lot more down the road, but what do you want to see in the Solana ecosystem in the next 1 to 5 years that you think would really propel the chain to where it needs to be, maybe having this billion users plus? What are your general thoughts on that after being one in the crypto space for too long, for so long, but then also jumping into Solana in some of the earlier days.
Yeah, for sure. I know. I definitely look forward to a few things, a few metrics actually for the new innovations that are currently happening for the Solana space. First, I think the stuff without the questions. I think Solana has gone through it is own DeFi phase of DeFi 1.0. I think we are seeing more DeFi projects, not just DeFi, well, entity projects, building out on top of all these protocols. So a few key metrics were, I expect all these protocols, they will gradually be open source and then encourage developers to build around their protocols. And secondly, is that Solana projects are still relatively hard to use for many key features. So I definitely look forward to ease these, especially shorten up these learning curve experience for users to use all these features. And third, um, it just has to be easier to use. Honestly speaking, this is actually the analogy I've been telling people from the early days when I created Dappio is that it gradually Web3 product would be like Web2.
Mhm.
You have to let users to be action savvy. I don't think Ethereum will come up something like this anytime soon. So Solana as a chain savvy users, where I expect more platforms should create much more user friendly features for people to use. I think here's the reason why you see Frankton's and Katana, they've been getting quite a bit of attractions from the space, right? Like the Vault products. Like there are people that are lazy. They just want to deposit, withdraw, and like, get their APY out of it. So, that's another key features. And and I also expect that a lot of protocols that will come up with their mobile wallets or mobile apps,
Mhm.
where the next wave of audience is definitely not going to be an OGs like us. It's going to be probably kids that are still in universities or high schools, that they just want to click one button and then access to the DeFi ecosystem on Solana. So I'm confident, honestly. With Phantom Wallets, we have almost over 2 million downloads with only such a short period of time, right? 3 to 4 months. So I definitely expect that next wave of users, they will choose a chain that they can use frequently without worrying about gas or speed. So, I think here's the reason why we're seeing more talent developers coming to Solana from Ethereum.
Yeah. And really, what I've been thinking about and saying is just the idea that good developers is probably a pretty good leading indicator for users. And we've just seen so many innovative projects coming out, and the velocity of which people are really putting resources in developing on Solana is extremely high. So I think that's really exciting, especially as we get into a period when the market is a bit more attractive and that picks up momentum. I think it's been awesome realizing that even through everything that's going on, the Solana ecosystem has just been heads down, chewing glass, you could say, and really just looking to continue pumping out that next wave of innovation. So I think that's really exciting. And you had that very well said, Justin, of what the next wave of onboarding users will look like. One, from the perspective of DApps and services, also from the perspective of what the user experience will feel like, and really bridging that gap, and why Solana is set to do so. That does cap it off for me, Justin. I just want to thank you for coming on and really giving us an overview and, more importantly, an update of where Dappio stands, what to look forward for in the future. And that really closes it up for me. Not sure if you have any ending remarks.
Yeah, like thanks for having me to this show, obviously. And I also want to tell our audience that Dappio as a platform is all about giving back. It's something that I want to do differently than a lot of Solana projects where we want to succeed. with our community members, with our holders as well. So look forward to more updates, obviously. And if you have any suggestions, ideas, feel free to pin me over Discourse or share your ideas. We all always view these ideas and suggestions carefully. So also expect the public betas. That I think that's going to be another trendy topics in the coming weeks for the entire Solana space. What exactly is Solana Wonderland, right? So we just look forward to. Yeah.
Definitely. I think that's super exciting. Justin, just want to thank you for coming on. It definitely sounds like we are going to jump on for another stream here in the next month or so as developments continue to roll out. And again, just want to thank everyone for tuning in. We'll definitely be keeping an eye on what's going on with Dappio, so be sure to tune into our platforms. And until next time, everybody, peace out.